Hello and welcome back to the Korean Beauty Show podcast. I am your host, Lauren Lee, the founder of Korean beauty consultancy Style Story and K-beauty brand Jellico. So on today's episode, I wanted to do a little bit of a wrap up about how Korean beauty is taking over and influencing professional beauty. And this is going to be largely based on what I saw and experienced at the recent Beauty Expo Australia. So on its face, you might sort of think, well, what's that got to do with K-beauty? But honestly, I was quite surprised myself. So I thought, if I'm seeing this in a place like Australia, I'm sure that there are variations of this happening around the world. I ran into actually quite a few of our listeners at the expo as well. And one of them was asking, she said, Lauren, are you going to do a wrap up of the show? And I said, I hadn't planned on it, but I can, based on, let me just see what I see this weekend and what is sort of going on, and then when I get back to Korea I can do that. So I'm doing that now because I went away, had to think about it, and I was actually shocked, I think honestly, how many Korean modalities, Korean ingredients, techniques, philosophies I think were really being highlighted and showcased at this year's expo. So this is not an expo that I attend every year. I don't think I've been to the Beauty Expo Australia since maybe 2017, 2018, definitely pre-pandemic. I don't get to Australia anywhere near as often as I used to before the pandemic either, is the other thing. So I don't actually spend a whole lot of time there, which I guess sounds a little bit funny because anyone that is listening to the show will be like, hold on, but you have a very thick, noticeable Australian accent, and that is true, but I haven't lived in Australia for 10 years. So it is a market that I try and keep up to date with and I am broadly familiar with, but it's not a place where I'm sort of walking around, seeing what's going on in real time. So I'm a little bit out of step with everything going on there in that respect. It's more sort of what I see online, what I read online, I keep up with the news and all of that sort of stuff, but it's very different walking around, actually talking to people, talking to professionals and other people in the industry to get a sense of where everything is at. So having said that, it was a really, really big couple of days. So I mentioned our team flew over from Korea specifically for this expo. And one of the unique features about this expo, unlike a lot of professional beauty expos, is that you can actually sell on the floor. So what that means is if you're a brand like our brand Jellico, which was exhibiting, you can take your product there and actually sell to people. Now, that sounds awesome. And it was I'll get to what we experienced in a second, but in terms of logistics and the practicalities of traveling to a trade show like that with a lot of stock, it definitely added in a lot more stress for us. Also because we weren't really sure, how much stock do you need? How much stock are we expected to sell? It's 2 days, it's on the weekend, and I had kind of reached out to the event organizers, early on in the year and asked that question and said, can you give me any kind of a ballpark figure? And they just couldn't. So we had no idea whether we were going to sell 20 products, 200 products. And when we got there, we saw that other brands had literally shipped entire pallets and containers of product. So I think it's safe to say there was a big range. So we, like I mentioned, didn't really have a good clue of what to do, but we did over a month's worth of sales in 2 days, which honestly really, really shocked me. We actually sold out of 2 products. We sold out of our Cherry Blossom Sleeping Mask on day 1, which was a complete fail. So it was the other thing that I thought was really, really interesting was to see the reaction to our products in terms of sales on an expo floor as opposed to online. So what I mean by that, so we already know, obviously, being an online first D2C retailer of our products, what sells well online. We know exactly what our best sellers are. We know how much stock we need, for, the coming months, because we know how things sort of move along. And that was all just thrown out the window completely at this expo. So for example, Cherry Blossom Sleeping Mask. Now that product didn't really sell that well for the first couple of years that we made it. We made it at the end of 2020. It was our second product. And, people, they liked it, but it wasn't a bestseller. And all of that changed when it won the Prevention Best of Beauty Award at the end of 2023. All of a sudden, it went crazy. We sold out globally, and it all sort of went from there. At the expo, this product literally flew off the shelves. As soon as people tried it, they took it. And anyone that came back on the second day, we were like, we're so sorry, but we don't have it. Because we had the testers out and people were asking about that product. The other big one that honestly really, really surprised me was our lip mask. And again, this is another product we launched in 2022, and it's been a steady seller, but not a bestseller. And it won, again, a beauty award at the end of last year, but it's the kind of product, evidently, that once people try it, then they are completely convinced. This product sold out, which again blew our minds because it's not a bestseller online. It's a steady seller at best. And it was the kind of thing that people literally tried it. And a lot of people said, look, I'm going to walk around the expo. I'll be back. I'll just see how it goes. And one by one, they came back, they bought it, and they sold us out. So that was really, really surprising to me, just from, the perspective of, I guess, a brand owner. We were blown away. I don't really have any other words for it. We did not expect that level of interest. We had literally crowds around our booth for large parts of the weekend. We didn't get to sit down for 2 days. The only time I sat down is when I was speaking and presenting on stage, which I'll get to that. We didn't get to eat. We literally had no time. We had a coffee each day and that was it, which honestly is a good thing, but it was completely exhausting. So having that's my overview of what I experienced at the show. I also want to deep dive into some of the, I guess, key themes that emerged from the expo and what I think that they mean for the future of Korean beauty. Now, the first one I'm going to start with is exosomes. And that is because I was, as I mentioned, on a panel actually with two doctors who perform a lot of aesthetic, treatments in clinic. So things that are designed to, improve your skin using injectables and things like this. So the theme of our presentation was global K-beauty trends, and the people in the audience were largely professionals. So beauty industry professionals, either estheticians or clinic owners, dermal therapists, brand reps. So that was kind of the context in which we were exploring the trends. And one of the doctors there said that by far, one of his most popular procedures that he does and one of the ones that he recommends is exosomes. And I know that a lot of people have been seeing these online. There are some skincare companies doing versions of exosomes as well. We've spoken about it briefly on the show. I'm getting a lot more questions about doing a deep dive on this. So I will get to that. So what are they? If this is your first time hearing it, you might be like, what does that even mean? So they are tiny extracellular vesicles that naturally transport signals between cells. So that sounds kind of, airy-fairy. Basically what they're being used in is regenerative medicine. So there are some early studies that suggest that they may help with wound healing and skin rejuvenation. And that is why we are now seeing them marketed in injectables and professional treatments. And there were a lot of conversations going on at the expo, particularly in our presentation, I guess, about, the future of this, what they can do. But this was very clearly in a clinical setting, and we were talking about mainly injectables or products that are being applied to the skin almost as a serum after a microneedling or some sort of procedure that opens up, the pathways for these ingredients to actually be absorbed. And I think that is another key thing that I'm going to do a whole episode on exosomes, but that is one thing that I want to go into, is how this all sort of works, because the research is still emerging. It is early days for all of this kind of stuff, and the regulation is also tightening. So earlier this year, Korea's MFDS, which is basically our version of the FDA, TGA, whatever you want to call it, did a crackdown in January, and they were specifically targeting misleading exosome claims in cosmetics. So cosmetics being your serums, your creams, anything that's not, a medical device or, an injectable product. So that's why I do want to dedicate a whole separate episode just to go through all of this in detail, cover what they are, the limitations of the science, the regulatory environment, which honestly is very different in every country. But, there are some pretty big roadblocks to this taking off in all of the countries that our listeners are from, America, Australia, Canada. So we'll go through all of that in detail in its own separate episode, just because honestly, there's a lot of meat and bones in there, and I can't really do it justice in a wrap-up episode. So if that sounds like your jam, if you want to hear more about that, make sure that you stay subscribed to the show so that you don't miss that. But that was honestly one of the key themes, and the key things that I kept hearing over again was exosomes. So there you go. Now, the other thing was just, I guess, the appetite for Korean beauty generally. And what I mean by this is, when Style Story first launched back in 2014, K-beauty honestly was a tough sell in Australia for many reasons. Number one, it was unfamiliar. People just didn't know what it was. A lot of people couldn't even tell you, I remember when I told people I was moving to Korea, they were like, oh, north or south? Like, as though that's a normal question, that you might potentially move to North Korea. Whereas I hope in 2025, most people realize that we are not talking about North Korea. We are very firmly in South Korea when we discuss any of these kind of things. So there was just a complete lack of information, knowledge. No one really knew anything about Korea. People kind of lumped it all into broader Asia. And, we used to get a lot of, unfortunately, very racist feedback and commentary when we were running, Meta or Facebook ads and stuff like that, to people that hadn't come across our store and our products before, sort of saying things like, oh, well, they eat dogs and they test on animals and all of these kind of things. So there was a really big gap in terms of the education. And the other thing was that a lot of people in Australia in particular preferred made in Australia. So products that were made in Australia, and they viewed Korean products as kind of niche, unnecessary, different. We just came up against that a lot. People were like, no, sorry, if it's not made in Australia, I don't use it. And I was like, really? It's such an arbitrary line to draw. Very few things are made in Australia these days. Why would that be your bar? What about all the beautiful French beauty products? What about all of the American makeup and things like that? But that was kind of the mentality. And like I mentioned, I haven't spent a whole lot of time in Australia since then. So I was not sure whether we would still come up against that again. It could have been the same kind of thing. So that's why we were also a bit well, how much product do we take? We didn't really know the kinds of conversations that we were going to be having with people. Fast forward to this expo, and honestly, the tone had completely shifted. Dermal therapists, clinic owners, even doctors were approaching us to ask, how they can integrate Korean products and practices into their business. Maybe they were wanting to do a skincare line. I spoke to many, many people wanting to, explore the potential of doing some sort of a skincare line for their own businesses. I would say the demand, in a sense, the curiosity was the other thing that really, really struck me. How many people were curious about it? And, for a lot of people that bought from us on that weekend, they said to us, this is the first time that I've ever been convinced to actually try Korean beauty. You explained it in a way that I understand what we're talking about now, and having been able to test and try the products firsthand, that was the kind of thing that got them over the line. So that was honestly music to our ears, because I do think that education piece for Korean beauty has been a huge part of it from the beginning. But hearing that, feeling, trying, listening to the explanations convinced them. And then obviously the product itself, that was really, really a highlight for me. I think the demand we saw was twofold. So number one, in clinic solutions. So like techniques, actives, devices even inspired by Korean dermatology. And then the second thing was retail for clients. So curated routines that clients can continue to use at home. And a lot of people that we spoke to at our booth were like, can our clients use your products at home afterwards? And obviously the answer is yes, they definitely can. And so I'm really happy to share that we've actually got a range of new salons throughout Australia that will be stocking our products. A couple of them have already started. So that is very, very exciting for us as well. But we were having these kind of conversations. People were curious enough that they wanted to know how they could make this work for them. And I think that also reflects something that Korean beauty has also done really well, which is like building systems rather than one-off products as well. And it really is a 360-degree approach to skincare. I think anyone that has followed along Korean beauty will know that clinical procedures and treatments are also a big part of Korean beauty, but you can't ignore what you're doing at home. Like those things naturally kind of work together. So that was really, really eye-opening, and seeing how professionals are now realizing, I guess, the value of all of this and how Korean skincare modalities slot into that model. That was really, really great. And honestly, I would say that these days, that is probably the bulk of the consultancy work I do as well. So with my K-beauty consultancy practice, I would say most, although definitely not all, of my clients are doctors, clinic owners, beauty industry professionals. Certainly not everyone. I've spoken to a couple of different people that are doing really exciting things in Europe at the moment as well. And they're all at very, very different stages of their journey, the kind of businesses that they're coming up with. There's just a lot going on in the industry. People are working out how to customize Korean beauty for their local market as well. That's the other thing that I think sort of struck me this time around, is that it's so important to make it work for whatever community or market that you're in. And the best people to do that are the people that live, work, and meet those people every day. I was having a consultation with someone in Europe the other week, and, she was sort of picking my brains and asking me this, that, and the other. And, at a certain point, I said to her, you are going to know better than me how to talk to your ideal customer, because these are your people. You are intimately familiar with your own culture, with how, these people want to be spoken to. What are they curious about? What do they need to know more about? I can tell you all about the industry, but I cannot tell you that. Only you know that. And that's your, I guess, biggest asset when you're, branching out your business and focusing on this. And I think that's very, very true, and particularly so in a clinical setting as well. So the other thing that I noticed was microneedling and tech ecosystems. Obviously, microneedling is not new at all, but the technology that we saw on display at the expo did show how far it has come. There are newer devices that are more precise, less invasive, and can be paired with, specialized serums or recovery products. And another thing that struck me was how brands and service providers are no longer treating microneedling as like a one-off service. So they're building out the whole ecosystem, devices for the clinic, supporting skincare for at home, education for ongoing results, all of these kind of things. So that shift towards personalization and continuity, I think, is very, very Korean in spirit, because here the focus has always been on consistent routines and gradual improvements, rather than like coming in and blasting their face off with like one big laser. It's really all about, micro tweaks and things you can do gradually to improve your routine and your skin. So I think the professional beauty sector is also adapting to that mindset as well. And so that was very, very interesting, in addition to the actual tech and things that they were using. Now, the other thing that surprised me, because it's definitely been gaining traction here in Korea for quite a while, is scalp health. So this was definitely a big trend, and it's basically the idea that your scalp deserves the same multi-step attention as your face. And this has really been popularized in Korea through head spas and scalp-centered rituals. I've mentioned this before, that I thought this whole area was ripe for people to take it and run with it. And what do you know? It's already sort of, the train has already been set in motion. So it kind of, if you're like wondering, well, what does a scalp care routine even feature? It's basically, if you think of like the multi-step protocol that people do for their face with Korean beauty, it's kind of similar to that. So you would do like a detailed analysis of your scalp health and work out, you know, what it's lacking or what it needs. Then you would do cleansing, exfoliation, hydration, some sort of a massage, a steam, and then like a finalizing and finishing, I guess, treatment, something for nourishment. So these treatments, just going through all of that, as you can tell, they're not quick. They can last up to 2 hours, and they obviously encourage you to go for regular visits to get the optimal results. So it really is the skinification of the scalp in a way. We're doing a deep detox and then a targeted treatment. And, you know, there are some obviously very Korean elements that are being used in a lot of these: herbal steam, you know, acidic rinses, that kind of thing, using Korean style ingredients, ginseng, fermented extracts, combining them with modern actives like your peptides, amino acids, your microbiome balancing complexes. But the goal really is long-term scalp health, which is the same thing with our skin treatments as well. We're focusing on the long-term health of the skin rather than just a quick fix, which is very K-beauty. So that honestly was a little bit surprising for me. In, you know, surprising yes and no. Surprising in that I don't think a lot of people have really focused on it until now, but I do think it has, you know, social media definitely has fueled curiosity about head spas and the multi-step scalp care routines. You know, I know I myself have seen a lot of viral videos, you know, with people like sitting there having their head massaged and this whole system, which looks really nice. So that is obviously one to keep an eye out for wherever you're based. Like, obviously I'm talking about Australia right now, but the same will be for everywhere. If that's one thing I can say, having talked to a lot of clients all over the world, it's the same kind of things. Like the things that we're talking about in the Australian context, we are seeing in Europe, in countries like France, all over. So I think that's, if it's trending in one place, it will be trending or coming soon somewhere else. That's just the nature of beauty these days. It's a lot more globalized. Now, another trend worth noting is the Korean lash lift. So that one surprised me a little bit, just because my first question was, well, what makes a Korean lash lift different? I've had lash lifts in Korea and Australia and the US and Dubai. I've had lash lifts in a lot of different countries. I wasn't really aware that there was a difference in the techniques. So basically, my understanding of it, and I'm by no means an expert in lash lifts, but the Korean method uses specialized rods and shields to create a sharper and more defined curl that follows the natural eye shape. So that basically gives you that more wide-eyed doll-like look that is popular in K-beauty, whereas the traditional lash lifts were more just about curling the lashes up. So that was kind of news to me, to be honest, that there was a big difference. I figured that there would probably be some difference in the formulation of the ingredients, and it turns out that they do tend to have things like keratin and plant extracts in them to minimize lash damage, which sounds about right. But there you go. So again, like K-beauty skincare, the philosophy is also not only about the result, but maintaining the lash health over time. And certainly there are a lot of products on the market here in Korea to do that in between treatments as well. I've spoken before about lash serums that sort of keep your lashes healthy in between lash lifts, whether that is you're doing the extensions or something like this. You really do need to take care of your lashes in between, because those kind of things can cause them to become brittle, drier, and fall out a bit easier, and that just makes them a bit shorter and stubbier. So a lot of different, I guess, products here in Korea are about sort of maintaining the health of the lash as well. So that was kind of broad picture what was going on at the expo. Obviously, like I mentioned, we were very busy, so we didn't get time to visit everything, or, like I would if I was an attendee. Like, we were exhibitors, really. But that was, so there were, all of this is to say, this was not the only thing that was at that expo. I think it's self-evident why this was the stuff that I was more interested in finding out about what had been trending. There was a whole lot of other stuff going on at the expo. I'm not really in a position to go through all of that, just because didn't pay as much attention to any of it, if I'm perfectly honest. So don't misinterpret that this was a K-beauty expo in Australia. It wasn't. It was just a professional beauty expo in Australia. This was more just me looking at it through a K-beauty lens and going, hey, what did I see? So I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression if you're thinking about attending this expo in years to come and you're listening to this show and you're like, hold on, I was expecting a K-beauty expo in Australia. It isn't, but I think it would be fair to say that whatever Korea is doing is, the rest of the world is paying attention to it now. So you do tend to see more Korean businesses exhibiting, and I guess the Korean influence is unavoidable now in pretty much every sphere. We've talked about everything from lashes to, hair to skin to in-clinic treatments. You will see the Korean influence in all of these, and it's self-evident why. We're leading the way. That's why. People are paying attention to Korea finally after all of these years and watching what's going on, and it's now almost become a selling point to have this K in the treatment, in the products. It's like actually a bonus or a benefit. So that is the other thing that's changing. So what does all of this mean? I think the big picture is beauty is evolving fast. Science, technology, and regenerative medicine are very much all converging with beauty. And that's why we're seeing all of these different ingredients and injectables like PDRN, like your exosomes, kind of coming through in the skincare as well. And professionals clearly no longer see K-beauty as just a consumer-driven trend. They really see it as a toolkit for their clinics. And this is a dramatic shift. Like, there's just no two ways about it. 10 years ago, even more, K-beauty was something that you had to explain and almost defend. And now it's something that professionals are actively seeking out. And that is a huge, huge shift. I spoke to one lady who runs a clinic in the snowy mountains in Australia, so not a city area, a rural area, and she was explaining that she comes to Expo every year, basically for her education as well. It's like professional education, ongoing education. And she was just like, I just can't ignore Korean beauty anymore. I need to know what this is all about. Like, my clients are coming to me asking about it, and I need to be able to give them answers. And I think that's honestly where it's at. People are kind of like, I can't ignore this anymore. Whatever their personal feelings are, it's not the kind of thing that they can just be like, meh, whatever, I don't know, So standing on the expo floor and hearing, clinicians, salon owners, educators talk about how they want to bring Korean techniques and products into their businesses was honestly one of the highlights for me. So that is where I'm going to leave it. Like I mentioned, I do want to do a future episode on exosomes. So my schedule is a little bit busy for the next week because it is K-Beauty Expo from the 11th to the 13th of September. And once again, we are exhibiting as Jellico, but this expo is 3 days, not 2. So that's going to be a bit full on. And I am speaking on the Thursday afternoon at the K-Beauty Global Insights concert from 4 to 4:30. So if you're going to be floating around Expo, please do come and have a listen to that. I would love to see you there. Basically, I'm just going to be going through what's next for Korean beauty. I think I called it Beyond Glass Skin, and it's going to be doing a deep dive on what global K-beauty consumers really want. what's working, what's not working, and where I kind of see the future of the industry. So if you were in town, I would absolutely love to see you there. Come and stop by. Otherwise, you will catch me at our booth with our team. We will be manning the Jellicoe booth. So if you have a wander around, I'm sure you'd be able to find us. So I will do a wrap up on that down the track as well. But I'm conscious I don't want this to just be like constantly beauty expo wrap ups, although they are kind of useful to get like a helicopter view of all of this sort of stuff. And I think I mentioned people do reach out to me from time to time saying, I'm thinking about going to an expo. Which one should I go to? And basically my answer is, here are the past episodes. Go and have a listen and see which one will suit you best. Because it really depends what you're wanting to get out of it. Are you looking for a packaging manufacturer? Are you looking for ingredients? Like, what are you doing in the industry? And then that will, lead you in the path of the right expo. If you are a beauty professional who is looking to scale your business with K-beauty products, practices, techniques, or maybe even manufacture your own line in Korea or change your manufacturing to Korea, I would love to work with you. Style Story offers a global K-beauty consultancy. You can learn more on our website, stylestory.com.au/consultancy. You can see our packages, how we can work together, and you can book a time slot as well. We've got new software now, so that you can literally just book in. So if that sounds like you, I would absolutely love to work with you. That is one of my favorite things, to work with people and find out what they're doing and, enhance that, basically make it a little bit easier for them, and save them some time and money too. That's the other thing. Like, I've worked in this industry for a long time now. I'm sure I can point you in a few directions that will save you a whole lot of time and money. So if that sounds like you, I would absolutely love to work with you. I'm going to wrap it up here now. Until next time, stay subscribed, hit the like button if you enjoyed today's episode, and I will catch you in the next one.